Judge insults Karoline Leavitt in court. Minutes later, Pam Bondi gets him arrested. What would you risk for the truth? The cardboard sign trembled slightly in the morning breeze, gripped tightly in the hands of a young woman standing behind the barricades outside the D.C. District Courthouse. Her voice was drowned in the chants around her, but her message cut deeper than any headline. The steps of the courthouse were swarmed by journalists, political spectators, and angry protesters. Some wore pins with Karoline Leavitt's face on them. Others carried signs labeling her a traitor. Karoline stepped out of the black SUV, flanked by 2 security officers. Her figure was calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight of the storm she was walking into. The chaos around her dimmed as she walked up the courthouse steps, her heels clicking steadily against the stone. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Ms. Leavitt, do you have evidence of the president's involvement? Are you prepared to go to jail for this? Are you afraid of what might happen to you after today? She said nothing. She had rehearsed what she might say to the press 100 times, but nothing would matter more than what she would say inside. She clutched the manila folder to her chest as if it were armor and disappeared behind the towering oak doors. Inside, the courtroom was a world apart. Cold, austere, built on centuries of order. Marble pillars lined the walls, and a colossal American flag hung behind the judge's bench. The air was chilled with anticipation, tension humming beneath the quiet. Karoline walked past rows of stiff-backed benches filled with senators, White House aides, journalists, and agents. At the center of it all sat Judge Gregory Mattson, a man carved from stone, known for his unyielding courtroom demeanor and his loyalty to institutional order. Karoline had studied him. He wasn't just a judge. He was a gatekeeper. He peered at her from over his glasses, face blank. Ms. Leavitt, he began, his voice a gravelly drawl. Try not to confuse the truth with your opinion today. This is a court of law, not a press briefing. A few snickers rippled through the courtroom. Karoline met his stare, her tone even. I'll stick to facts, Your Honor, even if they make some uncomfortable. Across from her, Attorney General Pam Bondi sat in icy silence. Her reputation was formidable, a prosecutor who'd built her career on precision and restraint. Some said she was more politician than lawyer. Today, she held the power to either bury Karoline or vindicate her. Proceed, Bondi said, rising slowly and stepping toward the center. Part 2. A system built on silence. Karoline's voice was steady as she began. I worked in the White House for 18 months as an executive scheduler. I had access to internal memos, meeting logs, and direct communications between department heads. I was trusted. She paused, her eyes scanning the room. Until I found something I wasn't supposed to. Her testimony painted a chilling picture, a string of emails between senior White House officials and a private defense contractor, Aegis Tact. In the emails, requests were made to track the movements of journalists, political rivals, and even government whistleblowers. The language was careful, coded, but unmistakable. Pam Bondi narrowed her eyes. You're suggesting this was a deliberate and illegal surveillance operation authorized from within the White House. Karoline pulled a page from her folder. This is a meeting summary dated April 7th. The subject line reads, Internal Risk Mitigation, Clearance above Tier 3. That's a known designation for surveillance clearance. Judge Mattson interrupted, tone sharp. Ms. Leavitt, are you an intelligence analyst? No, Your Honor. But I scheduled the meeting. I read the memo. I was in the room. The silence that followed was electric. Bondi pressed on. And why come forward now? Because the list of targets included sitting members of Congress. Because someone has to. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Part 3. The Ghost in the System. Recess was called. Karoline sat alone in the witness room, the fluorescent lights casting sterile shadows on the walls. Her thoughts drifted backward to the night it all began. A schedule had changed. A meeting had been rescheduled to midnight. Curious, she opened the digital log. That's when she found it, a folder marked Midnight Directive. She opened it out of instinct. Inside, encrypted meeting notes, location pings, email threads between top advisors and the CEO of Aegis Tact, maps of protest sites, surveillance plans, even profiles of journalists flagged as potential disruptors. She had printed what she could, knowing the logs might disappear. The next morning, her clearance was downgraded. Her email froze. Her office was moved. She knew they were onto her. Part 4. Turning Point. When court resumed, the defense called Thomas Reeds, head of security at Aegis Tact. He was slick, confident, and dismissive. Ms. Leavitt had no security clearance. She misunderstood technical jargon. None of what she claims is possible. Karoline watched him lie, calmly and completely. She turned to Bondi and slid a flash drive across the table. "Play it," she said quietly. Pam hesitated, then inserted the drive into the court computer. The room went still as audio began to play. Reed's voice: "If she goes public, we burn her. Make it look like a mental breakdown. Pull her medical history." Gasps. Murmurs. The judge banged the gavel, but no one heard it. Pam stared at the screen, then at Reeds. Her expression changed. "Mr. Reeds, you are now under investigation for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit defamation." Karoline exhaled. The tide was turning. Part 5. Truth on Trial. The trial spiraled. Public outrage grew. Karoline received threats, but also support. A group of whistleblowers rallied around her. Reporters unearthed more buried memos. One final witness came forward, Noah Grant, a former aide to the vice president. Under oath, he confirmed that the Midnight Directive was part of a broader voter suppression and media manipulation strategy. Pam Bondi's closing argument shook the room. This is not a partisan spectacle. This is not media theater. This is about democracy. One woman stood against a system designed to crush dissent. And she did not bend. Part 6. Judgment. Judge Madsen dismissed some charges, tried to stall others, but the evidence was too large. The case went to a federal appeals court. Congress opened a separate inquiry. 3 months later, Judge Madsen quietly resigned. Reeds was indicted. The Aegis Tact contract was revoked. Karoline disappeared from public view for a while. Then came the memoir, the foundation, the speaking tours. Karoline Leavitt, once a name whispered in fear, had become a symbol of truth. Pam Bondi, now a private attorney, stood beside her at press conferences. They never became friends, but they were allies in justice. Final line: truth doesn't need permission to speak. It only needs someone willing to carry it. Karoline had carried it, and the world, though shaken, had listened.